if we let people know we're doing it. And that's, again, coming back to utilizing some of our resources. If you're not really good at writing a press release, there are people in the organization who are. My spelling and my grammar may not be one, but we do have people who can do it. And if we know about it, then it can happen where, like Keith, when you guys did the summer event, got published in the little newspaper, Google picked it up. When Google picks it up, it goes, worldwide. And when people, for the lobbyists, the legislators, the county sheriffs, the police department, the public, they see Abate as a positive and they see motorcycling as a positive, it just keeps building on itself. And the key, what I want to try to do is, as we go around the room, take a look at the people we have here and take a look at some of the history. And we have Pan, former executive director and founder of Abate. That's a pretty big deal. You've been around for 40 years. Started when he was about 20. We have Little Bear. I'm looking for him, but there he is over in the corner. Also, one of our earlier leaders. Still very actively involved. It goes back how many years now? Does that shoot?
A lot.
And it's pretty cool on a Saturday during December that this many people, and especially a lot of the true leaders of our organization came out. I think we have Chubby's son. Where is Chubby hiding in the room?
I did over here.
Okay. We have 3 executive directors. We really haven't had that many over the years, guys. We're 40 years old, but there's an awful lot of history, and a lot of people will get involved if you give them the opportunity. And I want to have this be your meeting. I gave some general talking points. I'd like to kind of go through those as we go along.
Tim, I think, it is very, many of us would probably enjoy going to other regions. It is kind of funny. It would be, you got to go through and say, okay, when is the meetings over here? When are the meetings over there? I think, is it yours that rotated, the evens and the odds? I was looking over, again, yes, I think it's another way we can reach out to each other and go to each other's functions,
But I think you kind of maybe bring up, Tiger, and it's easy enough for us to do. Maybe we put together, we all have the newsletter, and we can read the newsletter, but maybe we put together a calendar of events, and maybe we put together and really start to use the part of Facebook for District 1, there are other ways to get at it where we're not just putting it on Facebook, but where we can start to share the information. But as a leadership team, and I will talk more about it at officer training in a month or so, but we need to commit. We need to figure out who's going to what meetings, when are they being held, and again, if you are having meetings, if they can't be held for whatever reason, we need to get that information out early so people aren't showing up and there isn't a meeting going on. What I'd like to do is I'd like to bring Chubby up, because Chubby, I don't get it, he always seemed to go to Washington County even though he's a Waukesha guy. But Chubby saw the early years, and Lori and Richie and Paul Vita and Tiger taking an area of the state what has huge population that's down here, and a lot of people may not realize that Washington County was the huge region forever and ever and ever, and Milwaukee and Waukesha were lucky if they had 2 to 3 people attending their meetings when you guys turned it around.
Exactly. So I guess what Tim wanted me to say a little bit is how that got going. And when I started as public relations director, even though I always lived in Waukesha County, I went to Washington County because that's where my friends were, my mentors, the people that really brought me into Abate. We had great meetings. In fact, I thought everybody had 80 people at their meetings at the time. And if you've been around the state, I think a good meeting now, some people will be in the newsletter. We had 15 people. We had an awesome meeting. It is what it is. I mean, if you have a productive meeting, I think 5 people is cool. But when I went to my first Milwaukee meeting, I couldn't find where it was. I mean, I was in the right bar, but there was 3 people in a corner of a room in a dark bar. It was the area rep, the treasurer, and the region rep. And nothing again. I think Tom Claymore at the time did whatever he could, but his membership fell away. How are we going to regain that? After that, again, this is the same month, I went to Waukesha's meeting, and it was Big Roy, a guy that lived in Hartford. He lived in Washington County. I was trying to keep Waukesha alive, and he had a few more. He had about 6 people at his meeting. And again, in a bar in a part of Waukesha County where I don't think we had a lot of people. that were members. So it was a little something else to get it. I think it was in North Lake at the time. And I got something out of that. As I gathered it, both of them were productive meetings. These guys knew what was going on in the state, but they pretty much read their newsletter. In Milwaukee, the three guys, they all knew what was going on anyway, so they didn't get a lot of places. But how are we going to change that? Well, the first thing we got to do is really take a look at leadership and how we're doing. It's hard. No, a lot of region reps I see say, well, nobody else wanted to step up, I did it. Well, you got to don't do it because nobody else do it. Then you might as well let something die. Somebody has to have the passion to keep things going. When I looked around, I asked a few people. I went from Big Roy, and then I believe Phil took it over. Paul Vita had looked at doing it, and then Phil took it over and started going somewhere with it. After that, Richie took it over. So did that help it? Did the region rep alone do it? Well, hell no. The guys from Washington County that I knew really well, I said, hey, maybe we could go to some of these meetings. And that's exactly, I don't think it was my idea, but Washington County people, we would take, say, 10 at a time, and at the time we all kind of rode together. We'd ride to a Milwaukee meeting. Well, now instead of 3 people, there was 13 people. Instead of 6 people at the Waukesha meeting, now we had 16 people. It was pretty cool. And when 1 or 2 people showed up, they didn't look at it as something that, oh, I don't know, these guys must not have it together. They don't have many people at their meetings. It made a difference that more people came. And I think, too, at the same time, those region reps didn't have to struggle. They didn't look at it as well, I'm doing it for nothing. There's only 5 people here. This is kind of rough. It's tough. In that position, to try to spark something new, it says something about a leader to get things going. And I think we progressed with Phil in Waukesha County. Richie Thompson took it over, and I think a lot of that had to do with Lori and the organization and the help she gave him. But she really, I'm only saying that because I don't see Richie here. Because all he do is go like this and stomp me into the ground. But it took, what I'm trying to get across is it took an involved effort from a lot of different people. There was no one answer. If there was, every region would be huge, every region would be successful. If anybody read the newsletter articles, my article this last month was about our mission and what we're really doing and what really the focus of Abate should be. But I think next month I'm going to talk about a lot of the fun I had this month because this is also what it's about. It's about brotherhood, and brotherhood, ladies, includes all of you too. I surely don't mean that gender-based. But being together and being part of the social atmosphere is good too. We need that too. Many of these guys, I walked into the room, I made a joke. I'm like, I seem to know everybody here. How cool is this? And I don't quite, so anybody doesn't know me, come meet me. But they were like, well, you should. Well, I don't know them. We have 7,000 members in this state. I don't know every one of them, but it sure is nice. The involved people that want to make sure we keep this thing strong are here. I see them all in the room now. It's the people I continually see at events. It's the people I pull the most money out of sometimes. But it's the people that keep things going, and that's what we need. So not only is it good to go to an event outside your region, events for sure we should be sharing, but meetings, you can only go to so many meetings, and basically if you read your newsletter, I guess it's in there. But the most up-to-date information comes from people who are involved. And this part of the state, we have a lot of people that are involved at the board level. You get up-to-date information. And if you want to make a difference, you want to lend input, which I strongly encourage all members to do. That's how we keep our organization going, is by telling, the board doesn't just direct on their own. They need input from members. I think we're blessed here because you got a lot of people you can say, I never seen this. How come this happened? What was going on here? How come we have this stance on this? In this room alone, there's 6 people I see that make a difference on our board of directors. 5 people I see make a difference on our board of directors. That's how stuff gets done. They don't make this stuff up on their own. Our board of directors is very much like our state legislature, right? People are voting for them in, and they're supposed to represent their constituents. So when they're not doing it, and we can't represent you if you don't speak up. That's what meetings are for. Come to meetings to voice your opinion. That's what emails are for. Type an email, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. I get them all. I have people that say something nice, say last month's article and about our mission and how many people believed in it. I heard a lot of good comments. I get nasty ones too. I don't know where you're going with that, Chubby, but you're going in the wrong direction. Hey, I take heed to all of it. The idea is to keep an open mind and keep things going. If you really believe in what this organization is doing, be involved. Help be involved. Get these regions going. So back to Waukesha and Milwaukee County are 2 of our strongest regions, especially in this area of the state. And I think actually right now Washington County might not be that 80 members at a time, but you get 40 people in a meeting, right? it sure is nothing to slouch at, and it's still probably equal to what Milwaukee and Waukesha does. So along the way, we all found a way to get together and stay strong. I'm really proud of everybody in this part of the state. I'm proud of the entire state. Abate has been very productive. Our officer training, our fundraising, as many organizations have gone down in fundraising, we've gone up or stayed the same at least. We've kept membership fairly good. We're really doing everything right. So I really applaud everybody that took the time out of a very busy season to come out to this meeting to see how maybe we can get things going and maybe we can just continue to grow. I'm very happy to see you again. And after this meeting, anybody that doesn't know me, please come up and introduce yourself. And we want your ideas. So I hope we keep this strong. And if I had known there was time, I would have kept it longer.
And again, to keep building off of the fundraising. Fundraising is, critically important to our mission. As you look at everything what we do, and what we do is with the help of a couple serious people like Mike Hupy, where the signage goes up. But I know Mike has literally hundreds of billboards and signs across the small ones, thousands of them across the state. We have thousands of signs across the state for the small ones, and we have a great deal of billboards. DOT, on the other hand, they have 2. So if we want to get that message out there and we want to promote it, it costs some money to make that stuff happen. And with that being said, it's fundraising. Fundraising is what brings us together for a lot of the events, be it in our part of the state, the Dice Run, or Milwaukee has the Riding Out Winter Party. It was always a great time.
Not that I have tickets for it or anything, but I have. $12 in advance, 15 at the door, serve all, big party.
We'll let you talk. But there are a lot of items what go on, what I know about because I'm here. But going to the other regions, I start to learn about. I mean, Kenosha took something what was pretty incredible. They did a gun raffle. You sold out of tickets, didn't you?
Yeah.
Raised a whole bunch of money and some good guns got on the street. So I
Give some to you guys.
Somebody want a gun or two up here?
No, the proceeds.
Oh, the proceeds.
We're gonna actually send some back to the state.
We would like that. But what I'm talking about is there's some logic of what we are. We are a not-for-profit. What's kind of confusing. We're not a non-profit. We're not a group who can take money in and we don't have tax liability. And it always becomes a question is, if we raise $100, how much of that $100 do we really get to keep? And what do we have to do with it? And why is there so much paperwork? Why do I have to fill out some forms? And we just happen to have our treasurer in the room, Lori, who I think can give a little bit better, understanding of why we do some of the paperwork the way we do. So if you could come up and maybe share a little bit.
I'm just going to stay right here. I'll be fast because it's the boring. Some of you may know what this looks like. Hopefully you all know what this is. May have seen it, may not. This is the form that needs to be filled out when you start planning your event. This form gets filled out. It goes to your district director. They take a, yeah, here he is. He signs off it, sends it to the business agent. Business agent sends it to me. They double check your reports to make sure your products report is current, your treasury report's current. They want to know, basically this is just the ins and outs of the event. When it is, where it is, if you had it previous years, what your profit was, if you're, where you're planning to put the money. The main reason for this form is when we do an audit of our liability insurance, we look at all the events that are held throughout the state to make sure that we have the proper coverage. The biggest thing on this form, which it's off now because we're actually revising it right now, at no event should you be selling alcohol. The only event that we are allowed to sell alcohol at is the Summer Hummer. So that is the only event that our liability coverage covers, is for that event.
So how does alcohol get involved in the event?
You can include it with your price of admission, but it has to be served by the establishment. So does anybody have questions about any of that? Let's get a little
You've taught all the treasurers well, Lori.
scene.
They all know about those rules.
Well, I hope so.
Those of us that don't do them, we're not.
It goes to the business agent first. Why? You take that
It goes
form
to
and
the
you send
district
it.
director first.
Okay.
The
And then I
district director then will reach out to the, to me, the state treasurer, as well as the products directors to find out their reports are current. Then when they sign off on it, it goes to the business agent. The business agent is just the person who holds on to it and keeps track. So when we get audited, when I say audit, I mean when we get audited by the insurance company, they want to know how many events we're holding throughout the state.
And what type of events, correct?
Correct. And making sure we have the right coverage and that we're not putting people in harm's way.
How about from a dollar amount? Because that's always confusing. If we bring money in, why is it so important if it runs through the checkbook that we know about it? And why is it so important to put the money through the checkbook?
Well, that's kind of a silly question. All the money should go through your checkbook.
Well, I want to make sure. Because I see some regions who don't do that always, and I think we want to share why it has to be done.
Are you trying to touch on your charitable contribution? Where I'm not sure
Well,
where you're going with
I guess what I'm
I always
trying...
want everybody's money to go through their checkbook.
What I'm trying to state is that when monies come in, Abate is a corporation. And again, with that, there is accounting. And if we have money in, we need to have expenses to go against that. And there is actually part of that expense is income tax and sales tax.
Absolutely. Sales tax, yeah.
And if we don't have the right documentation, and there is activities that are going on, can we be subject to some other types of audits, Lori?
Of course not. Hopefully all of you guys know that we did get audited this year by the IRS. That is another main reason for us revising this form and making sure that we have all of our records straight. If you read any region reports, you'll see they probably write about their events that they're holding. They may even write dollar amounts that were raised. If that stuff is all in writing in a newsletter and we don't have a paper trail of it, that doesn't look very good. So, unfortunately, I don't make the laws, I just have to enforce them.
The good news is, how did the audit turn out?
It was great. It was great. We did not get penalized for anything. We did have some errors. We found the errors before the IRS had a chance to find them when we were doing the audit, and we did not have to pay any kind of consequences to them.
And I think that's a great testament to the leadership who handle the financial side of Abate. There is a good group of people, and how many hours did you guys prep for?
A lot of hours. I don't know how many hours Sally spent. Our account, what is Troy? He's actually our tax accountant, yeah. Spent a lot of hours on it as well. A few of us going through boxes and receipts. The hardest thing was that it was for a year that Sally and I weren't as involved, so it was a little difficult to piece things together.
It's from a transition year from our former treasurer
Yeah.
too, so.
So it was a little bit harder, but moving forward, we're really, so don't get mad when I ask you for things. I'm not questioning you, and I'm not saying that you're doing anything wrong. We just really need to be on the up and up.
And the other key is from a good point of just good business practices. And why we talk about not using a shoebox account. You have a 50-50, or you have product sales going on at the region, or big events like we're collecting money for the dice run or one of the other events, that cash needs to be deposited. Bad things can happen, and it's not always intentional, but things can disappear. And when it involves money, it can be very, very problematic. And again, it doesn't happen often, but when it does, it gets kind of ugly to clean up. So the easiest way is, when cash comes in, get the cash deposited right away.
Yep.
Thank you, Lori.
I do have one more quick thing to add.
You do?
Just so you guys all, I just like to say this every once in a while. I know that you're all raising the money in your regions, and you're all doing a great job at it. But just remember that money belongs to Abate as a whole. That belongs to all of our 7,000 members. It doesn't belong to the 15 members that come to your region meeting. It doesn't belong to the 300 members that are in your region. It belongs to everybody. So we like to try to spend it wisely and make sure it all flows through properly.
Well, part of that too, Lori, is it goes back to our numbers. We're not individually chartered down to the level of Abate of Waukesha County, Abate of Milwaukee. It all filters back up to the state. So there's one tax return that's done consolidated for all of us. If there is an event like the Christmas Clearing Council that Waukesha just did, where we raised a fair amount of money for some families, and Bonnie's been very active and very passionate about it, we raised that by passing the hat. And that's what I'm talking about. If it's an outside event, it's not coming through our checkbook. It's not being, raised with the name of Abate.
We didn't use our raffle licenses, we didn't use Abate's name to do it. It would be the same if you want to raise some money for a down brother, a memorial fund for a down brother. Any of those things are a pass the hat deal. Anything that it's a few $100 you're trying to raise. If not, there's other channels and avenues. And I also want to think when you send money into the state, it doesn't disappear. We do have operating funds that we have to consider. But after that, that's what the district director is for. You're going to hold an event and you need some money to get started. It should come from the state. As long as your books are in order and everything's going well, the state will front you money for a positive event. A lot of those things, that's where Tim comes in, is he's down here, he's your eyes and ears at the board level. He's the guy that makes sure that your events are going to run, that you're doing stuff, that he gets you going in a timely manner. We're not holding on to it. By no means is it a control thing. It is definitely a professional thing. 20, 30 years ago, and I don't know how it was, Little Bear is still around, how it was when he did it, but with a smaller amount of membership, a smaller amount of money, we go through a lot of money in a year. And it does change, so I'm not going to say an exact amount, but it's a lot. It's enough to make the government notice, and we have people looking at it. As we look at this audit, didn't come from anybody doing any one thing wrong. It was a series of little things wrong, and they noticed that. If we don't have our I's dotted and our T's crossed, that's what's going to kill Abate. It's not going to be a legislative battle that we lose. It's going to be the government coming down on us for not having our books in order. And that would just be a damn shame. So as we grow, as we become stronger, it's incredibly important to have accurately maintained treasury, to have accurate books, to be professional. I think we've come a long way, and I think we continue to do a great job, thanks to a lot of people putting in a lot of work. I don't have the floor.
Go ahead, Mike.
I think I just read in the last MRF reports about Abate, Colorado has a little problem. Somebody
They have a big
absconded with some
problem.
funds.
They have a big problem.
Nobody left with any funds, to my knowledge. What had happened is Abate, Colorado runs their motorcycle safety program, and I believe they were expecting some funds to come in that they didn't get from the state. I'm not positive. They took out a temporary loan that would kind of be like a loan shark loan at a very, very, very high rate of interest, and then they didn't recover the funds. So in that effect, the person in charge has been removed from Colorado. Terry Howard was in charge, and I don't think at all she was a bad person, but they made some bad decisions, and it should have never been allowed to happen. That wouldn't happen in our state.
Well, I'm glad you clarified that because I saw the thing with her asking for help before I was thinking about doing
they were
anything.
paying an incredible amount of interest on a loan. It wasn't a small loan, but it would not be dealt with that on our level. We have a system of checks and balances where I don't even think a treasurer would be able to just walk away with a checkbook these days. You know, years ago, there was little problems like that. In fact, I still get when I go to Tomahawk or I'm pitching Abate to somebody, some guy that's 80 years old said, 30 years ago I signed up, I never got nothing, you screwed me. Well, it's like, there is not that system anymore. There's checks and balances all over. We watch all over, and it's not to say that anybody might not have a mistake and do something wrong, but I think our system of checks and balances keeps anything major from happening. And I mean, unless somebody buffaloes 13 people, the board isn't going to go anywhere with our money. Our eye is definitely on the prize, and we stay focused to that. And so we shouldn't have an incident like Colorado. Although if you look at some of the things that we've done over the years, I mean, the land was a big purchase. Did everybody agree with it? Not really. The shower building, I wasn't a big fan of it, but now that it's there, I sure like it. Now we got to learn how to utilize that land more. There's been many things where we don't all agree on, but as a whole, together, as a brotherhood, we've done pretty darn good. And that's not going to happen in our state. I guarantee it.
Chubby, how is Colorado recovering from that?
I'm actually not sure because I haven't talked to them like within the last week. But I think they will recover. They were a strong state initially. They drifted a lot of states. This wasn't going to be Chubby speaking all meeting. I'm sorry. But a lot of states.
But Chubby is.
I encourage everyone, if you have an opportunity to do any of the MRF conferences, whether it be STEAM or Meeting of the Minds, we regularly have scholarships that pay for your gas, tolls, and your hotel room to go to one of these conferences. Meet people nationally that do the same thing as we do in Abate, Wisconsin, and you'll find out how great Abate, Wisconsin really is. You're going to find out. If you didn't think your region ran real good, wait till you see what happens in some other states. I would bet that every region in southeastern Wisconsin runs better than most state Abates throughout the United States. We are very strong. We lead the way in a lot of ways, and I think we're more professional in some aspects. But more than anything, we keep, I said this a few times, keep our eyes on the prize. We have a specific mission. Many states have drifted towards primarily safety. And safety is important, don't get me wrong. But it's a mix. The safety and the freedom issues are important things to us. Where some states drift away and I think they lose their focus, that's where they lose members, they lose money, they lose what there really is all about, which was my point of my article this month. We keep it real. So if you get the opportunity to go to a national conference, take it and really learn. If anything, it'll boost how good you guys really have it and how you can bring some new ideas to the table from it. Now I'm going to shy away. I was just standing here.
Shelby, since we are talking about, some conferences, is there a big one coming to a certain county?
Oh my Lord, don't lead into it. Meeting of the Minds, which is the premier rights conference in the United States, is coming to Waukesha County next year. We're actually calling it Milwaukee, but we're going to be at the Sheridan. What is it a Sheridan there?
It is
Okay, right next to Brookfield Square, the Sheridan. It's going to be there next September. We'll start promoting our newsletter pretty soon, but there will be people from all across the nation at that conference. We're proud to be hosting it this year. We just got done hosting STEAM last year. We were in Wisconsin Rapids, and we had the most successful STEAM ever. We raised the most money by $4,000 it's ever been raised by a STEAM conference. Is a Midwestern conference. It's the 7 Midwestern states. Everybody switches hosting it. This year, STEAM is going to be in North Dakota. I encourage people to go to that. Bikers in the Beltway. Another thing we'll be having scholarships too. If you are politically savvy and you've never lobbied at the nation's capital, perfect opportunity to ride with some very serious bikers out to our nation's capital and get some serious work done. The MRF's legislative agenda is very similar to ours, but I think in our state we're apt to get more done because nothing gets done federally. I've been to Washington every year for the last 5 years, and I would dare to say that it's somewhat of a joke. If you think stuff moves slow, it really moves slow in Washington. D's don't play with ours don't play with D's, and nothing gets done. I think people tell you one thing to your face and do another thing behind your back. I've never seen such a thing in my life. All the stuff that motorcyclists bring to the table is positive for every motorcyclist in this nation. Just like in this state, we work really hard. The reason we pass bills unanimously, even if we have a split Republican-Democrat legislature in the state, we pass it because we work with stakeholders. We do things right, and it gets done. It is amazing that they are so defunct at the federal level when individual states can run as well as ours does. Believe it or not, no matter what you read in the news, our state does run better than a lot. So, and especially for motorcyclists. We've done really good in our state. We have an aggressive agenda this year, which I'm guessing you're getting to. But it's interesting to see what goes on federally and see if there will be any change with Republicans controlling everything. I can't imagine that there's going to be a drastic change. I think there's more of the slow and steady goes. But for as long as I've been lobbying in Washington, D.C., I want to say at least 3 of the 7 issues are still there that I started lobbying for 10 years ago. So that's how slow Washington, D.C. moves. But we're still the best country in the world.
Hey, Tiger, I'm going to give you the floor in fundraising, and I want to keep it broad. And what I mean by that is, Tiger is one of our more aggressive fundraisers across the state. He's kind of his own little machine. But there's a passionate item that he's involved in.
Again, this one's on the statewide, so again, it's not just Milwaukee County. I know even Nancy, who else? Rebel's in the room. People have helped us get sponsorships in the past. It's called our Summer Hummer Abate Sponsorship Program. We'll be coming out with it, rolling it out fully at officers training. So those of you, I hope to see some of you at officers training. I will be there this year trying to recruit some new VISRs, very important sales reps. And again, what we do is we go out and we search for some new sponsors for our program so that you can get some exposure within Abate, Wisconsin when you're driving to the Summer Hummer, as well as in the newsletter in the May and June editions. We have this little pullout that happens that has all our sponsors on it, tells you about the Summer Hummer.
Now you have to stand up, and now you have to talk about what I wanted to have you talk about.
I forget about your stuff.
We always talk about big events for raising money, and big events for us would be like our dice run or the Milwaukee big party coming up. But Tiger has done something kind of incredible down in Milwaukee. It's a lot of fun, and it happens every June. And it's done with Sobelman.
Oh, with Sobelman. Well, and again, Dave Sobelman, I do have to say, if you've never been to Milwaukee's Best Burger, Dave Sobelman, again, he is an Abate member and a motorcyclist. Dave Sobelman, again, is a sponsor. He's always in our sponsorship program. In fact,
But what does he do on the June one? What's just an item?
On the what's that?
The hamburger.
Oh, so the first Sunday of June, usually I am the host there, and he gives us $1 for every burger or sandwich sold. So again, a lot of you do get my email. You see sometimes in the newsletter, we get it published, but it's just another way that I help raise money for Abate, Wisconsin. Again, I'm the little greeter, and thank you for coming. And Dave Sobelman gives us $1. He's up to $500 a year lately.
But again, do we have 500 Abate members coming into the bar and restaurant?
Not really. His business has boomed lately, and it has grown. So he sells 500 burgers on that day, but obviously there's not 500 of this Abate, even though so many of us go through there. But again, he's very generous to us, and again, we try to help him in his business. I go to him and say, will you be a sponsor? Will you sign up? And again, he loves it when the bikers come to his place. So it's a very win-win. Is 19th in St. Paul. Jack knows, right in Milwaukee. And I have to say, if you're going down to Gamble, it's right up from the Harley Museum. Very close, down in the Millet River Valley. Thank you, Jeff Flash.
Tiger, he's always in our sponsor for our dice run too.
Yes, he's always a stop in the dice run.
But I see your business card and